Yokohama, the new leader in high-performance radial tires, presents Auto Check with Tony Morris. We kick off the 1985 edition of Auto Check with a special treat. These are the new Capris, extensively modified by ASC Maclaren. That's right, Maclaren, as in Bruce Maclaren of Can-Am racing fame. The convertible will sell for about $30,000, and the coupe will go for about $20,000. As the coupe is the more performance-minded of the two cars, that was the one that Tony chose to track test.
The ASC Maclaren is definitely a car to be reckoned with in the performance market. I was quite amazed by the performance that we got from this car. I didn't expect it as such. I thought it would be another Mustang, really, but obviously it's based on the Capri body and suspension components, and we put it through a really hard day at the racetrack, and it's come out really well. Very, very surprised indeed.
The ASC Maclaren Capris came about because Lincoln Mercury dealers needed a product to attract the performance-oriented customer. Too many potential sales were being lost to Chevrolet's IROC Z28 Camaro and Ford's SVO Turbo Mustang. The ASC Maclaren Capri is supposed to stem that tide. Starting with a stock 5-liter Capri, ASC Maclaren makes a large number of cosmetic changes and a few performance modifications. Things such as lowered and stiffened suspension help the handling, but the real heart of the ASC Maclaren is the high-output 210 horsepower, 302 cubic inch V8.
The most noticeable part of the whole thing is in tight corners. That's when the little 2-liter motor, 2000cc motor, seems to lag a little bit, and you've got to wait for the turbo to come in. This car with a V8 power, it's in instantly, and it keeps on going just like you knew in the good old days of horsepower. Ford has been really guilty of bad transmissions, I reckon, between second and third gear, and a big long drag between third and fourth, and it's been an old ancient 4-speed gearbox. The McLaren have come in with a close ratio 5-speed, and what it does with a V8, I know it's very, very important with a small cubic inch turbo car, but in the big cubic inch engine like we have right now, the 5-liter engine, it gives you very, very fast acceleration through all the gears. And then fifth is like an overdrive, and it goes in and it sort of breathes a sigh of relief that you've suddenly got out of the hard pounding of going through the gears. You've suddenly gone into fifth gear, and it's relaxing, and I really think it's an asset to this car.
Most enthusiasts agree that the most effective thing that you can do to improve a car's performance is install tires designed with performance in mind. The people at ASC Maclaren obviously recognize this truism.
McLaren had a choice to make on tires and wheels for the McLaren, and their choice was with B.F. Goodrich and their own style wheel. The wheel that you see in the car is actually made by McLaren for this ASC McLaren, and I think it was a fantastic choice. I would hope, and I'm sure that McLaren have got 16-inch wheels in the future with 16-inch tires, but at the moment it's on 15-inch with 225 50-15 B.F. Goodrich Comp TAs, and it's something that enthusiasts dream about, and the combination in this car is just fantastic.
We were a little disappointed that the McLaren's rear suspension and brakes hadn't received the same sort of attention to detail that the rest of the car got, but this may be because they just didn't have time to develop anything more exotic than the Capri's stock setup.
It's a conventional rear-end suspension setup in this car, and it has got good shocks, there's no doubt about that, but they're not gas shocks. And when you're in a real tight situation in a corner where you're just asking for that last little bit, it lacks it, and I think gas shocks would be an advantage in this car. The brake setup in the car is disc front, drum rear, and in today's high-tech engineering philosophy, that definitely isn't the way to go. However, we tried this car to its limit today at the racetrack, and only at the very last minute we tried to do one lap to find out what it would do against a race car. And as I went back into the hairpin, I was starting to gulp a little bit because it was run out of brakes. But during a normal testing, which I'm sure is the maximum that you would do around the city or even on the highway, the brakes were adequate. But it is something that is missing in the car, and for $19,000, maybe it should be in there.
Even though performance is the name of the game with the ASC Maclaren, it should be pointed out that the car is remarkably easy to drive. The big engine and the 5-speed gearbox means that it's quite happy loafing along in 4th gear at 30 miles an hour. That kind of tractability was taken into consideration when Tony gave the car its out of 10 rating.
I'd give this a very high rating, actually. The only thing I criticize about the car is right in the 10/10ths part of your driving, it tends to get a little bit skitterish. Now, I'm sure the majority of people won't get into that situation, but it is something that we would like to see discs at the back and good shocks in the rear, and it'd keep the rear end down. If the ideal car in the pony class was a 10, I'd give this a very easy, an 8.8.
The two cars that we looked at today on AutoCheck are both prototypes, and so they're not going to be sold to the general public. In fact, this one is on its way to Hollywood to appear in Sylvester Stallone's new movie. However, you can get yourself an ASC Maclaren by going down to your nearest Lincoln Mercury dealer and placing an order, but you better be quick because they're going to be brought into the country in very limited numbers. This week, our thanks go to Westwood Racing Circuit and, of course, to Tony Morris. We'll be back next week with another edition of AutoCheck.